transgender and has been trying to raise awareness of just the day-to-day issues that transgender people face. And today, one of the topics that we're going to talk about is violence against transgender people. There have been 32 killings so far this year of transgender people and gender nonconforming people. And that's according to the Human Rights Campaign that tracks these things. And so, Gabrielle, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Good, good. So I wanted to first ask, what is your reaction when you see that so many people have been killed, people who are transgender?
I look and to me, it's extremely sad because there's no way, you want to turn off the TV and it's like, you can't run from it because you see Tracy, if I could mention anything, I would say that, it really hits close to home. There's not a death of a trans woman that I, upon, coming into knowledge of, there's not one that I see, that I feel that it isn't personal to me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because we're such a small community within a community. We're such a, a minority, a very small, a family of women. And this is why I think a lot of us, we call ourselves, as trans women, sisters for a reason. There's not that many of us, around when you think about it, there's not a day that doesn't go by that is not in the back of my mind. There's not a day that, that my heart doesn't break for the trans sisters who are barely just coming out, the trans women who are barely just trying to come into their own, those who are trying to find their way. I think about this, sometimes,
And one good example, pardon me, but one good example would be Beloved Slater, who we're showing an image of her on the screen now, who just 23 years old, and she was found, in her car. Her body was found burned beyond recognition, and that was on September 4 of 2019. And her killing is why you and I met, because I went out there and was interviewing people. And now we're showing on the screen a screenshot of some Facebook posts that Beloved had made, in which she was talking about some ugly lies that had been spread about her supposedly having sex with middle-aged school children. And then someone wrote, "Somebody needs to kill Beloved." And she said that it was false, that people were just trying to drag her name through the mud. But in any case, then other messages followed on social media where she and one of her friends were saying, she felt like her life was at risk, in danger, and she wanted to get out of town. And so in one of the text messages, she said, "Okay, we'll live out of the car until we get a job and a place to stay." And they had a plan, and they were going to leave. And then there she is. The screen is now showing her and her friend there. So that particular case has been in the news recently because the FBI has joined in, and they believe that it may have been a hate crime. And the Hendry County Sheriff's Office, along with the FBI, are offering $10,000 to anybody who can help identify someone involved in the killing. So what's your reaction to that case, as far as just what it must have been like for Beloved to live in a small town in Southwest Florida, a small conservative town? How's that different from living in a city?
I mean, in a small town, you don't have, for the most part, in the small town, you don't have the freedom that someone would have in a bigger city to kind of, take the time, to go into your transition. You have to deal with the fact that maybe the people who are there in the small town you've grown up with, you may have ties to them. This may be relatives of yours. She was living in a very, 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 Hendry County is already small enough. Okay, in the town where she lived, it was half that size. It was a very small number of people, and so imagine everybody knew, you know, who she was. I I knew of I never got to meet her personally, and I did not have to carry her in my heart. You see what I'm saying? I did not have
Yeah,
to be a voice for her, you know, because that's what we're supposed to do, you know.
yeah,
She never had. I can tell you this, she did not want to be there. I mean, I know that if she had the choice, you know, she would have up and moved, you know, and I imagine that she was trying to get from out of a place where, you know, where she could go and start afresh, you know what I'm saying? And she can go and find a new beginning somewhere, you know. And obviously she had, you know, her best friend who she could trust, you know, and they were going to try to start over. You know, she didn't want to be that. I'm sensing she must have felt in her spirit that she may have been in danger, you know,
right.
and that,
And pardon me for interrupting. Right now on the screen, we're showing a shot of where her vehicle was found. It was a PT Cruiser that was torched and left next to a canal in Harlem, a former camp for black farm workers. And what struck me when I went out to that scene was how close it was to these homes. And yet, and someone did call 911. They did say that there was a car burning, but still now, more than a year later, it's an unsolved killing. And I wonder what makes some of these crimes so difficult to solve. This, by the way, on the screen is now a photograph of a man who has was called a person of interest in the case, but has not been charged, and that's Jameson Richmond. So, why do you think these cases are so hard to solve?
you know, something. Um, I'm against, Tracy, oppression on any side. Okay? I believe, you know, you can't advocate for one side and then, you know, make another side completely invisible. You know what I'm saying? You know, this is a reoccurring trend, you know, that I'm seeing where when trans women are murdered, um, trans women are murdered, it's the fear of some people being associated with the trans women. You know, you know, I guess, you know, stigmas. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things I could say. You know, for all the years, if you're looking at, you know, the ones who are reporting, you know, workers who are trying to claim, you know, fake leads, information, trans murders, are usually trans women within the trans community. And usually the ones who are the most represented. You know, we're fortunate enough to have advocates who step in, you know, who step in to speak up on the behalf. But other than that, you know, take for example, with you know, where she was found. If you look, you know, it doesn't matter about the kingdom, how tall it's up. It's so close to the homes. It's so close to the homes. So close to the homes. I mean, to say that, you know, you absolutely had no understanding of nothing, to say you absolutely saw nothing, you know, uh, uh, I think is really sad because, you know, in a small town, people speak, people talk, you know, in bigger
Yeah,
cities, uh, you know, we do a lot of stereotypes as well about Tracy, you know, as to why trans women are being murdered, you know. You know, we tend to associate and stereotype us, you know, so it's almost as if, you know, uh, we're just going on in a revolving circle. You know, I really hope that that will not I mean, most of these trans women that have been, the majority of them have been trans women of color, you know, and that's what, but,
and Gabby, pardon me for interrupting. Just one sec. Um, your audio was kind of cutting out. I'm not sure if everyone's able to hear, but I wanted to mention that on the screen now we have a photograph of Catalina Christina James. We can talk about her a little bit later, uh, but I'd like to discuss a little bit now the case of Demetric Jones. There's a photograph now on our screen showing the apartment complex that was the near the place where Demetric Jones was uh, beaten, uh, tied up, stripped naked, and then tied behind a stolen Dodge Caravan and dragged for several blocks. Um, and and this is a case that it occurred in Jacksonville. It's another case where um, not all the facts are there, but it's a another horrific thing. And do you ever kind of wonder? There's a picture of Dimitri right there. He didn't identify as transgender, but rather gender nonconforming, and sometimes he'd like to dress as a woman. So, what's your reaction to a case like that where there's such violence?
You know, once again, he's an
And
image.
Gabby, I'm sorry. Can I just say, is there something that did you change something with your audio settings? Because I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you.
Let me see something here.
Or maybe there's
Hmm. Um,
not sure.
let's see. Um,
This is a new thing, so we always have to check our technology here.
okay. Let me see what's going on. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little tinny, but I guess um,
I'm not quite sure.
that's a little better. Now it's better.
Okay. Okay. All right. Excellent.
Okay, that sounds a little bit better.
Okay. Can you repeat what you just asked me?
Yeah. So what did you think about just the violence? There's the case of Demetric Jones who was dragged, and then now we're seeing on the screen a photograph of Dominique Fells who was killed and her legs were severed below the knee. What do you ever get the sense that people are just trying to erase and destroy transgender people? I mean, what explains this extreme violence?
It's the issue is because the issue is that when it comes to trans women, once again, we're dealing with a lot of stereotypes, a lot of stigma associated. We're dealing with, I think that there is so much aggression and violence, extreme violence, towards trans women because there's a lack of compassion. There is no compassion for, because there is. The lack of education, surrounding trans women. Um, this is something that uh, um, is being taught at home. This is being pushed, in the streets. This is being pushed, in different areas. I mean, where, of course, there are a few trans women who are having a sense, privilege where they may not experience, this, but for the majority of us, we've either had an encounter of some sort of a run-in, a scare of some sort, but when it gets to the point to somebody's body being dragged, someone being set on fire, someone someone being dismembered, that talks about hate. That's hate. There's no other way to put that. I mean, um, and I think that these are the type of images that are ingrained, in a person's head. I mean, this is not something that we can kind of just like brush off to the side. This is something that we have to um, continue to speak up about. And like I said, I think a lot of this, this starts from home because I mean, if you teach hate, if you teach hate, this is the result of it. This it kind of spreads like a wildfire. I think that there are those who have to get in tune with. There may be those who have even an attraction. I would say, uh, for others. It is an attraction for trans women, and because you've been taught that anything that is different, is something that you should hate or
It looks like Gabby's video. It looks like Gabby's video went offline. She must have lost her connection. One thing that I'd like to add here, when we'll try to get her back on the line, wanted to thank Maria Hunter, who is commenting and saying that there have been attacks. There's, let's see, just seeing if I'm still broadcasting here. Raven is a transgender activist in, I think she's in New Jersey, and she has been facing attacks for denouncing. Raven Ova is that's her YouTube name, and Maria Hunter says that she's been attacked for reporting murders, and so that's also something that is pretty crazy. And speaking of reporting murders, there's a transgender journalist named Monica Roberts, who just was reported that she had passed away recently at the age of 58. And she really was a pioneer in bringing attention to these transgender murders with her blog. And she did a great job of that. And I interviewed her for a story not that long ago. And she complained about the practice of dead naming, which is if you have somebody who was undergone a transition and is now a woman, and suppose that person's killed, but then police identify the person by their birth name. That's known as dead naming. And she said, quote, "If you've got somebody that identifies as Jill and you're calling him Sherman or whatever their dead name is, we'll go, who? And by the time you start identifying the person as Jill, the perpetrator is getting away with it." So that's what Monica told me about, just one of the difficulties of trying to track down the killers of transgender people. She told me that victims' friends and family can often help investigators during the crucial 48 hours after a murder. But if investigators dead name the victim, they lose precious time. Roberts told me, when you refuse to use the preferred name of that person in a community will probably have information based on that name. You're hampering your ability to solve the case. And I have here Maria is wanting to join us, and I would like to. That would be great. So let me see how to do that. Let me see if I can invite you here. Pardon me for. Let's see, Maria. Okay, I'm trying to. Just a moment while I invite. Okay. Maria, can you create an account? And then I can invite you. I was looking for your username, but would love to have you on. That would be great. And you create the account on HAPS. So if you go to HAPS TV, it's pretty easy to do. And then once you have a username, I can search for it here, and I can invite you. So that would be great. And so while Maria is trying to get online, I guess I'd like to go back and discuss one of the other cases that we've been looking at here. So the case of Catalina Christina James, she was shot to death let's see. Oh, Maria, I'm just answering Maria here. Uh, the way you would connect Maria is go to HAPS. If you Google HAPS, HAPPS, and then you sign up. It just takes a couple minutes. HAPS uh, period TV, and just takes a couple minutes. And then once you sign up, I'd be happy to bring you on. And let's see. It looks like Gabby's back. So there you are. How are you? Uh, okay, I can hear you well. It's This is all new, and sometimes the internet connection fails us. But thank you for your persistence and for getting back on online here. And so I was just talking about a little bit more about the difficulty of solving these crimes, and one of the issues that sometimes comes up in the case of transgender murders is that there's job discrimination and people have trouble finding work because they're transgender, and then some feel compelled, they're forced into survival sex work. And I wonder, could you talk about that a little bit, about just how underemployment and discrimination can push transgender people into being in difficult, dangerous situations, more so than if they weren't transgender? You how did you overcome that obstacle? Um, what did you go through? And it's expensive too, isn't it? What about health insurance and some of the, for some of your needs? Um, is that possible? Yeah, yeah. You know, when you were you might have gone off for a moment there, or may have been having audio problems, but um, a while ago, one of the commenters, do you know Maria Hunter? Yeah, she commented, and she's trying to sign up for an account so she can join us, and I think that'd be great if we can get her on here too. But she made a comment and said that uh, there has been some uh, harassment, or she said they're attacking Raven Ova on YouTube for reporting murders. That's your friend. Yeah. So what do you know about that? Do you know what's going on? Mhm. Yeah. So we have a new Power Ang joined us. Thank you. And I wanted to ask about the issue of race in this whole thing, because when I interviewed Donald James is the father of Catalina Christina James, who is the one that I told you about, who was shot to death in June of 2018 in Jacksonville. And her body was found on the third floor of a Quality Inn and Suites. And uh, no one, I don't believe anyone has been arrested in that case. It's another one that's unsolved. And so the victim's father, Donald James, he's a truck driver in South Carolina. He said the capital of Florida would be on fire in Tallahassee. There would be all kinds of stuff going on if the victim were white. The justice system is failing the transgender community totally. What do you think about that? Do you think that the fact that if someone is black, that affects the resolution of these cases? Mhm. Right. And the one of the things that the father told me, he was very worried that his daughter was going to something was going to happen to her, and so he said, I used to tell her all the time, strike one, you're black. Strike two, you're a transgender. And strike three, you are outgoing and you're not afraid of being in public. You've got three strikes against you, so you've got to be real, real, real careful. She always told me Don't y'all worry, I'll be all right. What's your reaction to that? Does that kind of thing ever go through your mind? One of the activists that I interviewed here in Florida, Chloe Diana Kensington, here's what she told me when we were discussing violence. She said, "I've never really been an advocate of civilians with guns. I'm not an advocate of assault weapons, but I am an advocate of self-preservation and self-protection. If the police won't protect and serve the way that they should, then I do think it's up to each of us to take our safety into our hands." And so what she's saying is that she believes that trans people should arm themselves. What do you think about that idea? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just have a few more questions. Uh, I wanted to add one other point that Chloe made. She said that the attack, we were discussing the attack on Demetric Jones, the young man who was stripped naked and dragged behind a Dodge Caravan for 2 blocks. Um, it didn't kill him. He was put into a coma. He got out of the coma, and I don't know what his current condition is, but it's a horrific, horrific attack that left him obviously in very, very poor shape. So she said that particular attack reminded her of a lynching. She said, well, it happened to black people all the time at one point, just walking down the street, being who you are, and you were lynched and dragged and hung from a tree. What do you think about that? Yes, yes. Yeah. Right. Okay. Here's a comment from 5 Minute Starfish saying, "Isn't America one of the safest places for a transgender black?" A third sex, a third gender. Right. Here's another question. Yeah. Pardon me. Here's another question from 5 Minute Starfish. She says, "Is it a life or death situation when it comes to transitioning?" Hmm. Well, out of the out of the 32, let's see, was it 31 or 32? 32 deaths reported so far this year. Six are in Puerto Rico, and then four in Louisiana, two each in Florida, New York, Missouri, Texas, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, and then just uh, several other states: California, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Maryland, Georgia, Oregon, Colorado, Illinois, Arkansas, and Washington State. So 17 states altogether, and Puerto Rico, with Puerto Rico taking six out of the 32. So the killings seem to be spread out all over the country, but for sure, what you say about the specific location, even in a state, can matter very much. Maria Hunter is commenting here and saying, agreeing with you. It's all about location. So how do you see the future? I mean, right now, would you say that the political climate has gotten a lot worse over the past 3 or 4 years, or for transgender people? Okay. And yeah, how do you deal with hateful comments that are made toward transgender people? Yeah, the audio is not working very well. Okay. Well, that sounds great. Well, Gabrielle Hurst, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been a very interesting conversation. Thank you for your patience with a couple audio problems and all. But uh, I hope that this conversation helps in a small way to raise some of the awareness of all the violence against transgender people. And thank you so much for joining me. Okay. Thank you.